Hello, everyone, and welcome to Power Hour. Our topic today is going to be the new modern controls in Power Apps, the modern form control, and there are a handful of other modern controls. So let's get started. All right, I'm Laura Rogers, and this is Joelle Jobson here in the window. And this is Power Hour. We've been doing this over 10 years, Wednesdays at 11 Central. And you all vote for the topic. So I send out a newsletter the day before, and you all click a button to vote for the topic for today. So you all voted for the Power Apps Modern Controls. So we also have a lively chat going on. We chat in teams during Power Hours. It's live discussion. You never know what's going to happen. So wherever you're watching this, there's going to be a link to fill out a form to join if you're joining for the first time. And if you've already joined, you just jump into Teams and switch over to our Power Hour tenant and then chat in there. So it's good to see you all here. Good afternoon. Hey, everybody. Hey, Missy, Steve, Laura, Raheem. Cool. Good to see you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get right to it and share my screen. And so here's Power Apps. So what I'm going to do is we'll talk about the new modern controls. We'll compare the old classic form controls to the new one. And I'm going to go ahead. I've already built an app that's got the modern controls in it, so I can kind of refer to it, but I also want to just kind of start from scratch and just show you what it looks like and what it entails. And then we'll kind of go into not only the ones that are just built into the form, but just some other ones that, that are included in the list of modern controls that do some little interesting things. So this is the tenant that we're in Power Hour that all of you have access to when you're in here chatting with us. So this is just a little expense tracker list that I created. When I created it, I just used the expense tracker list template, but I wanted to be able to demonstrate a couple of the different types of controls. So I added a couple of columns to it. I added an approver column, which is a people picker, because people pickers are kind of weird the way they work. And I also added a column called executive, which is just a yes, no. So I wanted to be able to represent all the different types of columns that you could have, like choice, we got currency, we got a date picker, etc. So to get started, I'm just going to go ahead and start from scratch. Now, you've probably heard me rant about how all the reasons, the negative reasons not to do a customized list form in here. But I'm going to demonstrate a customized list form just to have that be just the quick way that I show you how to build the form. And then the other app that I already created is going to be one that is a standalone, and that's what I created here. And that's what I'll be kind of referring to and things like that. So to build just a customized form, you can just go to your SharePoint list / Microsoft list and go to the integrate button and choose Power Apps and choose customize forms. And that is just the quick, easy way to just create a custom form if you don't like the way the SharePoint list form looks, or if you have kind of some extra things that you want to do with it that you can't do with a SharePoint list form. I think I'm going to do another Power Hour about just like comparing Microsoft forms, list forms, Power App forms, and just that decision that you're making. Okay, so it spins up a Power App, and then it gives me just a default classic form on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger first. I'm going to go to the display and change it to landscape. And so I like to have a little bit more real estate here. And then I'm going to change it to have 2 columns. So this is just what it looks like out of the box, just with just the form control that it puts on here. And let me see if I can preview it. I can see I can just tell this is the classic date picker. This is the classic form control. So, and I have another screen that I've created, another app already, where I'm going to visually compare the classic and the modern, and we can look at them next to each other. But for now, I'm just going to delete this entire classic form control And I'm going to go to, now notice that all I can see here to insert on here is all the classic stuff. I don't have the modern yet. So I have to go to settings and go to my general settings and do modern controls and themes. So it's going to give me not only controls, but themes, some color themes. And so I have to turn on the modern controls and themes to be able to now be able to insert from this list of all these controls. So I'll go ahead and I need to find the form controls. So I'll just click form and I can like spread it out, stretch across the screen. There we go. And then I need to tell it what my data source is, expense tracker. And then as soon as, just like with the other control, as soon as I do that, it puts all the fields on there, and I'll just give it 2 columns again. And so this is what it looks like with the modern control, or the modern form control. So let's take a look at just kind of, I need to go ahead and get, do all the same settings that the other form control had that kind of ties it together with SharePoint, like having it tied together with the new button and having it tied together with the edit button. But for now, just to quickly be able to demonstrate it, I'll just insert a button up here and put new on it, just so you can see what this is going to look like. And it'll be a new form. It has these new, this new formula bar. I'm not sure how much I like it. It seems a little, it's not as intuitive as the other one. I don't know why. So this is what it looks like. I kind of like the modern date picker, Joelle. This solves for that problem that people always complain about having to click a date. And then in the classic one, you have to click the date and then you have to click OK. So with the modern one, you don't have to also click OK. You just click the date and it's there, which totally makes sense. And so this is what they look like. You can see that they each have this cool little line that shows up underneath them. And it's just got kind of more of a slick interface as you are clicking around in things. So that's what it looks like to just put the modern form control on the screen. And then we'll go ahead and go over to the other app that I created where I already put it on the screen, and we'll talk about some of these other modern controls. So I'll go ahead and just back to SharePoint, save and publish that. It's pretty ugly. I didn't spend any time kind of trying to make it look nice. All right, so now that's going to be the default form for that list. I'm going to go ahead and go over to this other one that I created. So this one I spent a little bit of time already to put all these controls on the screen, but here's what I'll demonstrate. First of all, I do have the modern form control. This is the one that I just showed you. And I put a submit button on it, and I put a new button to create a new form. But I also want to show you the other thing that was along with the modern controls themselves that kind of controls the way all of this looks on the screen. And that is going to be the new modern themes. So when I turned on that modern setting, these modern themes are there now too. So notice that it doesn't change a ton in the actual fields on the form, but it changes a lot of these other colors for these controls I put on here, and it changes the buttons color theme, this little progress bar, this little kind of some of these other controls I'll be showing you. All right, so in the form control, we have, let's go ahead and go to little plus to add a control. And so you can see the button, I'll just kind of go through some of these. The button itself is not that different. It functions the same. It's got an on select where you tell it what you want to happen when somebody clicks the button. And then it looks, kind of almost does the exact same thing as the other one. And then the slider is going to be just a modern looking version of, there was already a slider before. So the slider's not really a new concept. The link is going to be look like this. It's going to be a hyperlink. So here's a link that I inserted on the screen just so I could show you what it looks like. And what you do for the link is you tell it what word you want it to say, and you give it a URL of where the link needs to go to. And then, of course, when somebody clicks the link in your app, it goes to that URL in another tab. but it's just got a few like little formatting things that you can do with it to make it look nice. Like it's got an accessible label. It's got an alignment, just kind of aligns it just in the, just lines it up, and this centered it in the middle of the control. So it's just centering the text, and then you can tell it how you want it to vertical align, and if you want it to wrap, you want the text to wrap. And of course, just like most things in Power Apps, this could be dynamic if you wanted it to be, but it's really just got a few little formatting things. The next one is going to be a progress bar. Now this is pretty interesting. So Joelle, we've used progress bars. Haven't we used progress bars in a couple of our apps we've done for customers? Just like when you're filling out a form, maybe it's like a really long form and you want the person to know where they are. It just kind of like shows you across the bottom of the screen.
The wizards.
Yeah. And it's really just kind of gives them a visual indication of where they are in the progress of filling out the form. But that one, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of logic. You had to kind of do it all from scratch. But this progress bar is just, you just insert it on the screen. And what you're going to do is you're going to tell it what its two numbers are. So the max and the value. So this is very similar to the way the slider works with the max and the value. But the slider, the user is interacting with. This one is just going to be what it's visually going to look like. So like if I put a 60 on here and it's 60 out of 100, you can see it slides over a little bit. So what you would do is you would have something like, I've done this before where I had an approval process. I actually just created a number column in my list. And as the approval process went on, I had the flow or workflow set a value and increment this approval number column up as the process went along. As different people approved it, it would just add one to the number. So then you have like your approval process is maybe 10 steps. So then 10 would be the maximum. And then you can make this be dynamic according to where you are in the process. So the person has a visual of how far along this form has been. So that's just an example of what you could do, because in that value, that's where you could put some dynamic information, like have it reference a field in your data. And then progress bar also has a couple of settings. It's got rounded versus square, which you can't really tell much of a difference with that. This one's interesting. It says indeterminate. So that makes it animated. So when you click the little indeterminate thing on, it just gives you like this moving progress bar. It's really just a completely different concept of just seeing this bar moving across the screen. So that's what indeterminate does. So, and I'll go ahead and you all, let's see, does anybody have any questions? Oh yeah, before this modern form control came out, you had to just insert a classic form and then just go to each individual control and change them to be modern, which was a huge pain. It took a lot of time. Let's go to the next one here. That's just going down the list, and that is a tab list. And that is what I've inserted right here. So a tab list is going to let you type just words. So you could say, whatever I type in here is going to show as different sort of tabs. Now, this is another one of those things, right, Joelle, that it took time to build. It would take like an hour or two to build one of these just to make it, show it on top of a form, to have maybe different tabs for your form. But this is going to be just a lot easier way. It's just something that people commonly had to do. So when I preview my app, as I click on each of these, it just has this nice little slider that goes from thing to thing, and it looks pretty slick. So what it does is, the way you could use it is it's going to have a, like this is called tab list 1. It's going to have a tab list 1 dot value, and that's going to tell you what was selected. So then you can hide and show things on your screen or in your form controls according to what somebody's clicked on the tabs. Now, if we have a little bit of time after I've gone over all these, I might try and build out just like a very simplistic one of those, because that seems like a really common thing people are going to want to do. The next one that I have down the list is, so that's my favorite, basically. That's my favorite modern control. We have badge. And badge is this thing. So this little circle right here. So the badge has just got, what do you want your content to be? It's got appearance, filled, ghost, outline, tint. And it follows along with the same color theme as what you've selected in your modern color themes. And it shows whatever content you want it to say. And that can be dynamic as well. I just have my initials in here. And then it's also got brand, danger, important. So this is one of those things that you could, just like with the notify function where it's got little kind of dot information, dot warning, it's got different colors that you can do the notify that has that notification across the top of your app. This has got a similar concept to where you could go to this. Let's go to the color. Let's see, does it have it in here? Theme color? No, not theme color. I was looking for color here. Let's see. Oh yeah, theme color. Yeah, that's what it is, dot brand. So this thing, dot brand, this right here is something you could potentially have be dynamic. You could say, you could have maybe a gallery and you're inserting these into a gallery and you could have it show dynamic information as the content. You could have it show a different like dot, different little color here according to certain values. So we did a power hour one time about conditionally formatting a gallery, and we showed how to do different little shapes like this and have it show as a different color according to different values in the list you're looking at. So this is one of those things that's just got a built-in, what's the text going to be, and it's got a built-in setting for what the color is. And that's just something that you could, make be dynamic, just like all of these. But that's just, it's called the badge. So I guess that's Joel, Chris and I were talking about this one before we started, and I thought it was a little odd. I said, what are people going to use a badge for? And he reminded me that how much of a pain it is to insert a shape and then insert a label on top of it. If you just simply want to have a word on top of a shape. And because then you have to do two different controls. So at least just this kind of puts it all in one control, makes it a little bit simpler. So you could also put, if you had this in a gallery, you could put actual text from, a piece of data, like an actual data from your list. Like if it's a status or something and you want it to show, instead of just this basic text that it shows, you can make it show an actual status, like the name of the this item dot status, and that word would show in here. So just kind of a lot of little ways that you could utilize that. The next thing we have down here is a checkbox. I'm going to show the checkbox, combo box, date picker, drop down form when I demonstrate the form control a little bit deeper in a minute and compare it to the classic one. And then we'll just kind of look visually at what the differences are and what's so special about these new modern ones. The next thing that is interesting that's a brand new concept in here is called header. So this is a header up here. Let me move this thing out of the way. This whole thing up here is the header. So this is the header control. I'm going to delete it and add another one to show you what it looks like. So I'll show you kind of what all the settings are and how I got it to look that way. So first of all, the words that are showing here, that is just the name of the screen. So again, that's one of those really common things that people like to do on every screen, right, Joelle, is just have what screen they're on showing there. So now what I've done in the past is I've gotten the habit of using kind of like a mashed together word like SCR, like the name of the screen, SCR, and like some mashed together words. But that's one of those things that you could get, if you like to use these headers, you could get in the habit of just naming your screens the exact words that you want to show on the header. And then it just kind of saves you a few clicks, a few steps. And then some of the other settings in here are, let's look at the properties. I've got style as primary, I've got neutral and light. So light is what I had on that other one. I'll just leave it on primary. And then base palette colors, just some colors here. You can choose your fonts and you can choose your title. Of course, this, I'll show you how it references the name of the screen's title. It says app.activescreen. and then name. Name is just the name of the screen. And so that's how it knows that piece of data right there. And then another thing that it has is a logo. So when you click on logo, if you don't have any images uploaded to your app yet, it will let you click to add an image file. So I uploaded my company logo here, so I can just select it. And then it just shows the logo there at the top left. Another just really quick, easy setting that was a lot of steps in the past. And then you can have a tooltip for it, and then profile picture, on or off. So profile picture is just, that's one of those things that people are just kind of used to seeing, you know, at the top right. When you're in Microsoft 365, you see your name up at the top right. So this just shows the logged in person their own profile picture, and it's all just built in. So yeah, that's the gist of what the header does. Let's go back to the list of modern controls here. And the next one is information button. I love this. So when people are filling out a form and they need to know more information about something, you can put this little information box here and put the words that you want it to say. So for example, one thing that you can do is that you've been able to do in the past is you can do a hint text. And it doesn't, let's see, does it have hint text in the new modern one? Ooh, the new modern text box doesn't have hint text, which I don't know if I like that. Do you use the hint text a lot, Joelle, when you're in text boxes, like to show people kind of what they're supposed to be typing there?
No, I had one thing that they had so many descriptions for every field that I had to use it a lot with that one, but not regularly.
So this concept, again, in the past would have taken a lot of clicks and a lot of logic to put this functionality in here. But let me go ahead and just put an information button. I'm going to unlock this card and put it in here. And then I'm going to put, what is the date of the expense? I'm going to make it really long here. I'm going to put like a couple of sentences to see what it looks like when it's really long. A lot of text here. And then try it out. So this one just has name this expense, and this one has, so when you put a lot of text, it actually stretches the whole thing out and displays it all there. So this is a way that you can give people just, you know, a way to click to see more information about each field as they go through filling out the form. So some of the properties are, you've got the icon size, you've got small, and medium is the default, and I can click to large, which is a little bit larger. And then you can have the base palette color, which, as you can see, it inherited this teal theme color that I selected. And then it's got a font size, which font doesn't really apply to that. Well, I guess, let me see, the font applies to, the font applies to the text that pops up. That's pretty cool. I like that. That's really bold and stands out. So because I chose that Lato, what did I choose? Lato Black is the name of the font. So that is the font of the text that pops up. So that's really helpful. So a lot of these, as you're probably noticing, a lot of these modern controls they're all just pretty small things, but these are all things that we have had to spend hours on in the past, and not hours like on each individual thing, but just extra hours in building apps that Microsoft's trying to kind of help by narrowing down the amount of time these things take, because these are all just really common things people do in their apps. So it's going to be helpful to be able to use these and just have a lot of this built into the controls. Some of the other controls, we've got radio button, we'll look at spinner, table. Now I like this new table control, Joelle. Look at this. It's really slick. It automatically shows you how many rows it has, and it has the ability to, it shows you how many rows are selected. I try to select 2 rows and it still just says selected 1, so I'm not sure, but it is definitely a lot more slick than the old table control, data table control. So I like the way that looks, and it's not necessarily that much useful though. So it looks a lot better, but what you get when you insert it is this over here. And you can see it's got the different fields that I added to the table. So the way you do that is by clicking edit over here next to the fields, and that's where you can add or remove. So you can go remove them. And you can add more fields from your data source that you want to be displayed there. Like if I want to add created by, it just added it there, but now I have a scroll bar. I don't want to have to scroll, so I'll remove that again. But that's how you can add the fields. But the thing about these is you can't really, there's not really anything else you can do. You can change what the word says at the top. Like if I want category to say, no, because that's the field name. If I change it to say cat, it doesn't do anything. That's weird. So yeah, it's really slick, but as far as usefulness, and I've always, kind of rant about how not useful, how useless the data table control is compared to the gallery, that still applies. So all the negative things that you know about the data table control and limitations to it still apply to this one. So the gallery is still going to give you the ability to arrange things better, have formatting, just have it look exactly like you want it to look. But these are very quick and easy. So that's always then been the benefit of the data table control, is that it's just very quick and easy. You just slap it on there, you point it to your data source, and then it's just got your information displayed there. Let's see if it lets me, like for the amount, I would probably want to put a $sign in the amount in the front of that. Field display name. Let me see if I put like no, because that's the display name that it's going to show up here. It's not going to show that down here in the column. Yeah. Oh well. And it doesn't really let you change the widths of different columns either. So, but again, it's very quick and easy. Okay, let's see what else we have when I go to this little plus. I have a, we went over the header, radio spinner. We have a spinner control. And the spinner spins. There's my spinning wheel. So I've got a spinning spinner. And it's got appearance primary or inverted. Ooh, I like the inverted one. And then I've got the label. So I don't have a label showing on this. So just put spinning as my label. That's my accessible label. So I think when I hover over it, that's what it's going to say. And then my actual label. There, spinning. Okay, so that's, and then you can, if you put a label on it, then that's where you can determine where you want the label to show, before, after, above, or below. So I'll put it below, and then the spinner size, I'll put, it's got a lot of interesting names for these. Tiny, extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, huge. Apparently that's the huge. It's not that huge. According to Microsoft, that is a huge spinner. Then, let's see. And then, so what you can do with this is you can have it, what I would do with it is have it appear. So maybe when somebody clicks submit on a form, you can have this appear just for a few seconds while the form is submitting, and then before it takes them to another screen. I don't know. Does anybody ever have reasons in their app that they need to be able to show a spinner to show that like you're waiting for something? I usually try not to have people.
Yeah, though I've had that one time, and it was because there was so much. It's such a huge form, and there was so much happening that sometimes it would like go to the next screen, or like something would happen and it like wouldn't submit or something like that. So we had to put like a spinner, or no, they would close it. I think that's what it was. They would close it. And so if we put the spinner there, then they wouldn't close it. They would wait.
Oh, that's helpful. Yeah, it's like in user
they
feedback.
Would close the app. That's what it was. And then it would like, it wouldn't finish. And so then, yeah, so that's why we put that in there.
Okay, yeah. Oh, Joel is asking if the table is locked. The table isn't locked. A table doesn't have a lock unlock. The only thing in Power Apps that you have to unlock is a card and a form control. So that the table itself is not locked. You can go to the Advanced tab. It just doesn't have that many settings. One setting that I do like that galleries don't have, by the way, is the fact that you can put no data text to let them know that there are no items to show. a gallery doesn't have just a built-in way that you can let it show any verbiage if there are no items in the gallery. Show avatar, yes. Show column headers, yes. Show footer, yes. So that's the column headers, that's the footer. So it's got a few settings. It just doesn't have really much that you can do with the specific columns. Yeah. Oh, Lisa said I use spinners because my users tend to close the app. Yep, you're right. That's what Joelle was just saying. It's totally right. Let's see. So I went over the table, text input, toggle. So those are really the major ones. Again, I want to try and spend some time doing this whole tab control form thing. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and show you my comparison that I did. So I've got a comparison here. So these are the two different form controls. This is the modern one on the left and the classic one on the right. So I just want to kind of show you how they work. So like the date picker is a big one. The date picker, the modern date picker, you just click a date and the whole thing goes away. And with the classic date picker, you have to click a date and then click OK, which people hate. And then you can tell that the drop down just looks a lot slicker now in the modern control than it did before. The people picker is a big problem. So the people picker does not work out of the box. You have to make adjustments to it, unfortunately. So I'll go ahead and talk about, I'll just show you just a couple of these other controls and what they look like, and then I'll show you how you can fix the people picker. So this is the toggle. It looks pretty much the same as the classic and modern one. The modern one doesn't put on and off next to it by default. Another thing you could use would be the modern checkbox. So a lot of times people like to have a checkbox instead of a toggle. So what you would do is insert this modern checkbox and then delete the toggle and have the checkbox instead. And the modern checkbox, it just looks a little nicer than the classic one. And it also, of course, gives you the ability to have, what is the text that's going to show next to it? And do you want it to show, it's going to have a default information. I didn't tie this one to the data in SharePoint, but let me show you what you would do. You would delete. So this is data card value 24. And then the update property, whenever you're changing out of control, and you're going to have to update the update property. So this one is, let me just grab that. This is not the update property. This is just the y-axis of one of the controls in here. But here is the update property. So you're just going to change it to be the name of your new control. Dot checked. Let me see what else it has here. Dots. Yeah. So that's the data that it's going to send. Now that I've tied it to I put it in the update property, that's how it knows to now send this information when someone submits the form. Of course, these forms, I didn't even put a submit button on either one of them. I just wanted to show you what the boxes look like. So again, as you can see, the text box they just look nicer. You also have the same concept where you can go into a text box and like this description one, I'm going to change it to be, instead of edit text, edit multi-line text, because I want it to be kind of a long description. So that's the same exact concept that you could do over in the classic one. So edit multi-line text. So it's going to have that same functionality, just makes it looks a little nicer. Then I was going to show you that, let's go fix the people picker and show you what the problem is with it. So let me go over to, I'll put a new button on top of both of these and show you what the problem is when you're trying to fill out the people picker. So let's see, this one on the left is the modern control. So I'll put a modern button on it. I'll put new. And then when I click the button, I want it to send the new form function. That's what I don't like about this new little function editor, is it doesn't automatically put the opening parenthesis like the old one did. So it's kind of awkward. So this one, I'll put form 3. That's, oops, wrong form, form 2. I didn't give them names, did I? I always like to give them useful names. So that's form 2. And then on top of this one, I'll put a new button and I'll put a classic button. Just go over to classic. and new. And then on select, do new form, and that's going to be form, let's see, form 3. Yeah. Okay, let's see what they look like. New. Okay, so then approver, as you can see in the classic one, I can just type Laura. Oh, the classic one. The classic one's all weird too now. At least it lets me find somebody though. The modern one doesn't do anything. So what you have to do is, I fixed it over on this other one. So let me go click new. And then I fixed the way you have to fix this. The first thing you have to do, and now hopefully this is temporary. I'm not sure why this doesn't work, or why, I'm not sure if they're working on it or what. But what you have to do is you have to add the connector. So do add data, do Office 365 users. I already did that. I added this connector to my app. And then what you have to do is go to the items property. And I'll go ahead and just copy this terminology and put it in the chat. It's the Office 365 users.search user. And then it says just search term empty, and then top 99.99. So then when I start typing Laura, then it's got, it actually shows users from the organization. So yeah, and then I'm able to, let's see, where am I going to go? I'll go to Atlanta. Let's fill one of these out. And that one's submitted. I didn't set it up to do anything after I submitted. It just kind of left me here. But I can also go click these. So what I did is, just like you always do, if you want a form to show an item that you've clicked on, you can use, what I commonly do when I'm building apps for just in the real world, I use a variable and I call it var_record. For this little quick demo, just with the table and the form on the same screen, I wanted to show you how you can reference what the item is that's selected just here on the same screen in the table. So for the item property, I put, and this is just the name of that table, .selected. So therefore, as I click on each thing, that's the one that it's showing here. So that was just a quick way to have just everything on one screen. In the real world, I usually have much bigger forms and much bigger, longer lists of things, and I don't usually have sort of the real estate to be able to just cram it all onto the same screen. I usually have the person go to another screen where the new form is just, it fills up the screen. So this is not that common of kind of a layout. All right, so any other questions? I like the way Teams actually color-coded, it actually put the color code of, instead of just putting plain text in the chat, it actually took the color code of this code that I pasted and it put it in there. That's fairly new. I don't remember it doing that before. So yeah, that's what you have to do, is you just have to change the items property. And then, oh, you also have to go to fields here. And by default, there was nothing displayed here for this actual combo box. So I clicked add field, and this is showing me fields from that list of users. So I choose display name, that's the person's name. You could also just choose their mail, which would be their email address. So if I chose their email address, this is what it would look like. That's very ugly, right? So that's why I chose their, let me get rid of email and go to display name. There. I wonder if I could change search term to self.search text. See how that works. Well, I don't think it made much of a difference. No, it didn't put it in here when I did that. It didn't select my name. So yeah, don't do that. Let's put an empty one there. Okay. All right. So that's the big bug that you're going to find when you insert a modern form control, is that you have to go fix the people picker like I just showed you. And then the next thing that I want to demonstrate, let me know if you have any questions in the chat. But the next thing that I'm going to demonstrate is I'm just going to go ahead and deep dive into this concept of having the tabs across the top of the form. So I'll go ahead. What I'm going to do is just insert this on another screen because this is kind of a mess. It's got just stuff all over the place. I want to be able to just focus and you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So I'll add a new screen, just a new blank screen, and I'm going to insert go to modern and go to form, and then choose expense tracker as my data source. And I can say, let's just say I want 2 columns. It doesn't have that many columns, so you'll have to bear with me, just kind of be a little creative as far as what we're looking at, because usually when we build these sort of tabs across the top, it's going to be a form that's got lots of columns that you don't want to have to show all at once. And I also wrote a blog post about this. Tabs form, let's see. Yeah, tabs SharePoint form. I also wrote a blog post about this a long time ago, back in 2018. So a lot of the principles that I wrote about still apply. It's just we have, instead of having to build all these buttons from scratch, we now have that little tab control that we can use. So that's really the main difference. So I'll go ahead and insert one of those new modern tab list. And so what you're going to do is decide what you want the options to be. And I also I'm going to put a border around my form because it looks very just sort of floating out there and ugly looking. So I'll put, now it's got a border around it. And okay, so the goal here is to have just the categories. Think about a form that you have that might have different sections of the form, and you have just the names of those sections is what you would put here. And this could also be dynamic. Like this could literally be a SharePoint list that has all the different sections of your form defined in the list. So it's just an items property, it works the same as any items property in any other control, like a gallery or anything that drop down a list of anything. So it's got the same functionality. So I'll just say info, I'm just making these up, details, and then attachments. Those are going to be my 3 tabs. And I'm literally just making this up based on kind of the concepts that I used before in that blog post. So the idea is that you're going to know what somebody clicks on, because you're going to be able to refer to it, and you're going to be able to refer to the name of this tab list. So I'm going to give this a better name. I'll call it TAB expense. And that's what I'll name my control. So let me just show you just a visual of what this is going to look like. Let me just put a label on here. Label. Just put a text label there. So I'm going to refer to the name of the control dot selected, and then dot value. And then as I click on things, notice that, see the name of the control dot selected dot value, that's what I can refer to, that's going to have the information about what they clicked on. So I'll go ahead and I need to have a new form button. So I move this down a little bit, and I'll just grab that, copy it, paste, and then this is going to be what form is this? FRM with form with tabs. And so that's going to be my new button that creates a new form with tabs. Okay, try it, click it. Okay, so what we want to happen is as I click across each of these, I want different fields to show on the form. So it's really just going to be one form, but it's just going to hide and show things based on what I'm clicking on. So I just made this a little bit shorter because I'm just going to have a submit button down at the bottom. Look at, what did I do? The top of the form is like not selectable. Just move that up again. It's weird. Okay. I dragged my form control down and then like all the little handles around it disappeared. So I need to go to each control and set this in the visible property. So I'm going to set the define when I want each one to show. So like the title, I want it to show on the info. So the visible property is going to be the name of that tab, control tab expense dot selected equals info. It's case sensitive. Oh, dot value. Sorry, dot value. So now, of course, that one's already selected, but now, as you can see how it works is when I click away, now the title's not even showing. So that's the gist of how this is all going to work. So it is a little time consuming to have to go to each field. That's why I'm using a small form for this demo, so you can just get the idea of how it all works. But so the title is going to show when I'm on the info tab, and I'm just going to copy this and paste it. So I'll just put I'm going to the visible property of each card. I don't even have to unlock them. I just need to go to the visible property of them. So I'm just going to say the title and the date are going to be what's going to show on the info tab. And then on the details tab, I'm going to show the amount, category, description. So that's going to be details. So the tab.selected.value is details, category, description. Oh, getting the idea here. Let's see, category. And then approver is also another one. I'll just make that show here on details. And just obviously you can have lots of different tabs, especially if you have a big form. You can just keep adding them. You don't have to just only have 3. And then the attachments, that's going to be the receipt and the attachments control. And those are going to be show when we're on the attachments tab. So I'll just change this to say attachments. So do you think, Joelle, this is a little bit less work than before when we had to do this more kind of from scratch? I think it's a little bit less work with the tab control.
Yeah, I think so.
It makes it's a little bit more approachable.
I think it looks better. I think it looks better too. Like, it's hard to make it look good when you don't have a lot of, like, if you're not a designer, you know, it can be hard to kind of make things like look that like nice.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, because I'm not creative. I'm not a designer. My apps are not beautiful. So so go info, details, attachments. So now you can see, like, this is kind of wonky because it put one below the other one, but you can see that it's obviously showing the right ones on the right tabs. You have to be careful with the required fields though, because you don't want somebody to necessarily jump to details and hit submit if they didn't fill out any required fields on that first tab. So that's gonna, I don't know, that's gonna be like a little bit extra work to make sure that somebody fills out the required fields that, you know, especially if they move across here and they don't see it anymore. I'm not sure off the top of my head what you would do for that. I'm trying to remember what I did the old way when I did that. One thing you could do is you could make it only required when you're on that tab. So literally like the visible property. So the required property can be the exact same as the visible property. So I do have to unlock that if I do want to change the required property. I could just say self.visible. So now it's only going to be required when I'm on that tab. So if I go here and I click save and I didn't fill anything in for title, it's just fine. It just goes in. But another problem with the required property that we've always had with Power Apps is that by default, it puts whatever you have required in SharePoint. So in SharePoint here in my list settings, whatever's required here by default is going to be required in Power Apps when you first insert the form control. So if you change any of these later, the form control is not going to automatically know. So what I usually do as a best practice is, especially I don't have the users going to the SharePoint list at all, they're just going to the app. I just make everything not required in SharePoint. And then I do all my logic with making things required or not with that required property that I just showed you using logic in the app. That way you don't have to worry about the complexity and the weird oddness of things that might accidentally be required in one place and not in the other, and it gets awkward. Let's see, can you use form.valid on the submit button and disable the submit button until all required fields are filled in? Oh, I didn't even put a submit button on there. Let's see, Lisa. Put a button down here. Submit. If you've ever watched Power Hour before, you know that towards the end, this is the part where I'm just kind of making stuff up. Haven't tried this part yet, so we're going to try what Lisa just said. It's the name of the form.valid. Is that what you said? Let me see. Go to the form. Oh, I don't want to go to the form mode. I want to go to the. First of all, let's use a label. So whenever we're troubleshooting things and we want to just kind of see, just like we were looking at what the value is of what's selected on these tabs, we can use a label to look at the value of something. So I can do form with tabs dot valid, and right now it says false. So let's see. So what you could do is now it says true. So let's see if I don't fill it in and I go to details. Ooh, it's empty. And I go to details, it says true because, oh, okay, let's take that logic out that I changed it to only be required if it was showing. So I'll just put required true. And then I'll sum this up if it works. So it says valid false. So it's valid false. I'll say test, go to details, 800. So it says valid true down here. And so it knows that it's valid because I filled that in. Now let's go, as I scroll across and fill out other stuff, you can see that it still says valid false. So like she was saying, first of all, I just clicked the submit button and it didn't do anything. But let's see, we can gray it out if it's not valid. So display mode. So if frm with tabs dot valid, then it's going to be in the edit display mode. Otherwise, it's going to be in the disabled. Let me put display mode. Disable. Okay, great idea, Lisa. I love it. So notice this is grayed out. So they can fill out all this stuff and they can do their attachments, but they can't click submit until they type that in, and now they'll be able to do it. Awesome, I love it. Cool, very good. Good feedback. That was fun. Okay, well, let me just show everybody real quick what I just did that Lisa pointed out. So I left this as required. So any of your required fields, just whatever is required, you can go to the card and go to required, unlock, and change it to true. So whatever says true in the required property, those are the fields you want people to fill in. So what we were saying the problem could be is if they went to another tab and tried to click submit, they wouldn't necessarily be able to see the fields that they had forgotten to fill in. So, but Lisa pointed out is that there is a name of the form control.valid property. So I'm looking at the value of that property so I can visually see what it looks like just for testing purposes. But I took that concept and I went to the display mode property of the button and I said, if this form.valid. So I don't need to say if the form.valid equals true, otherwise do this if it equals false. Since the property itself is a Boolean, then this right here is going to equal true or false. So I just say if form with tabs.valid, and that means if it's true, then display mode.edit. And that's the default display mode of a button. That means that it's clickable. Otherwise, display mode.disabled. So if it is not valid, the button will be disabled. Cool. Oh, and Lisa said she also displayed text next to it that explains why the button is disabled. Oh, yeah. And so basically she put some red verbiage that says cannot submit if input is missing in any of the required fields. That's good feedback. So they'll know why their button is grayed out. I like it. So we've got 6 minutes. I'll add that on here. So let me see. I'm going to do insert. I'll just stick a text label on here. I'm going to delete this other one. And she made it red. It said something like cannot submit if any of the fields are missing. Oh, any required fields are missing. So then what you want to do is make this only appear if it is not valid. So I'll go to the visible property of this and I'll say the name of the form control dot valid. So if I do this, then if it is valid, the text shows. So I want to do the opposite of it. So it's not valid, the text shows. That's what that little exclamation mark is. So now I'll go pick a date. And now the form's valid, and now the red disappears and the submit button lights up. That was fun. All right, so the recap real quick. We went over all the modern form controls, all the other modern controls, and kind of went into what some of the settings are and what they're used for. And then I talked about how the people picker is a little weird and doesn't work correctly out of the box. So I showed you the workaround for that. And then we went into each control, and then I did a deep dive of how to build this concept of having different fields appear as people click on different tabs in a form. So let's see, it's a holiday, so we do not have a power hour next week. If you ever need to know when the next power hour is, you can go to IW Mentor, click the schedule button. So this is today, and then so the next power hour is going to be January 3rd. Thanks everybody for coming, and we will see you next time.